Well, there's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about what legalisation and regulation actually means in practice. And we found that one useful way of emphasising our message is to push the idea of control, specifically retaking control. And if you actually look at Transform's sort of logo, it's Transform, getting drugs under control. We think it's a useful message. And actually the Global Commission on Drugs has also used it as a title of their new report, which is called Taking Control, Pathways to Drug Policies That Work. So emphasising the idea of control we found is useful for a number of reasons. Mostly that it challenges a lot of the misconceptions or preconceptions around what legalisation and regulation actually is. For a start, it challenges the idea that somehow legalisation or regulation is to do with relaxing the laws or liberalising the laws. Clearly it's not either of those things, it's actually the opposite. We're rolling out the state to take back control of the market, which has been abdicated to organised crime. So we're not liberalising, we're not relaxing, we're doing it absolutely the opposite. So if those terms come up, don't just not use them, but actually challenge them when you get the opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to talk about the idea of control. Similarly, the idea of free markets, that somehow legalisation and regulation will lead to unregulated free markets, or somehow that there'll be sort of crack vending machines in schools or sort of heroin in sweet shops. Again, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about deregulation. We're talking about regulation. We're talking about bringing regulation to a market where currently there is none. So it's not talking about free markets. We're talking about controlled and regulated markets. A third sort of narrative strand where we think is useful is in terms of when you're looking at decades of a war on drugs rhetoric, any movement away from that war on drugs is often seen as synonymous with weakness or surrender. And again, if you use the language of control or retaking control, you can challenge that. This isn't about giving up or losing the war on drugs. It's about acknowledging that that particular policy approach hasn't worked and we need to take control so we can get this problem under control and start to get the kind of outcomes that we want to see in terms of reducing crime, in terms of improving health, in terms of protecting young people, and so on. And finally, I think it's just worth understanding how politicians think. They like the idea of control. They are power-crazed maniacs, a lot of them. And they're not actually necessarily interested in the outcomes of policies, but they like the idea of power and they like the idea of control. So emphasising that side of the narrative appeals to politicians at the same time as reassuring the public, because there is these misunderstandings, and when you talk about control, they are reassured by that. The politicians like it. We found it to be a useful way to talk about this particular reform platform.